Welcome to the Sports Legends, where you're going to get the most in-depth sports breakdowns on YouTube. I'm your host, Bull. Today, we're going to be starting our series on all the SEC teams' conference schedules. And we're going to break this thing down very, very lightly. We'll probably go more in-depth as we get closer to the season. And obviously, we just got done with spring practice. We're about to head into summer practice. So things can definitely change. But this is just an early look at the schedule, what the talent looks like, how the games went last season, and what I think, who I think are going to end up winning these games. So as always, y'all, please do us a very, very big favor. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As y'all can see, this channel is still new. We're still trying to grow. Also, share with your friends and family and everybody else because, we could use as many subs and likes and all that as possible. That helps us out tremendously. So let's go ahead and talk about Alabama, man. Their first game is going to be versus UGA. That's a hell of a way to start off your SEC schedule. And the good thing for Alabama is that they're going to be coming off of a bye. And Georgia is going to be coming off of a visit up to Knoxville versus Tennessee. We won't talk about how that game is going to go. But what we will do is talk about how physical that game will be for sure. So Alabama's going to have more time to get ready for this game. They should be, a lot more rested and healthy. And Georgia might be kind of limping into this game. So that could be very obviously beneficial for Alabama. Now, the game is in Athens, okay? We know that Kirby Smart has trouble beating Alabama. I don't care where the game's at. I just think that he has trouble once he sees that Crimson. And also, I'll just say it this way, man. I think that Kirby Smart is a very good coach. But from just talking about like on the field coaching, like X's and O's, I think that Coach DeBoer might be better. So either way, last season, we all know that Alabama won that game 41-34. Now, let's go on ahead and jump into how the talent breaks down. Now, these are the two most talented teams in the SEC. All right. Now, all this stuff is based off of 24/7 Sports. So what we're looking at are the blue chip caliber players, right? So we're talking about first and foremost, let's take a look at Alabama's offensive line, right? So they've got 13 blue chip caliber players. And then next to that, that's the average score, again, based off of 24/7 Sports for the whole group. The 13 is not everybody in that room. There's going to be some that were 3-stars that didn't make this cut. So understand that for some of these spots, you'll see that it'll only be 2 or 3 players because there's only 2 or 3 blue chip caliber players at each spot. But I also want to say this. I think that Alabama might have one of, if not the most talented skill players on offense and defense, right? Like not just on offense, but on offense and defense both. I think that it's probably top 3, just as far as the actual talent. I'm not basing that off of the numbers. I'm basing it off of watching the players play. Okay, I think that they've got some guys that can, that are NFL players. That they might have more than most other programs. Either way, it's not really about what your skill players do. It's more about what the trenches look like. What's the front seven look like? So like we said, Alabama's offensive line, 13 guys that are blue chip caliber. They're going to be more veterans. But if you look at Georgia's front seven, so that's their D-line and their linebackers, both of these teams play a 3-3-5. They've got a total of 23 blue chip caliber players. A lot of those guys will be young. That's the difference here. Georgia's got a ton of talent on paper, but will they see the field? And also, like once you get past a certain number, like I say, once you get past maybe like 8 blue chip caliber players up front, some of those guys are just like death pieces. So they would only really come into play if, God forbid, something happened. So either way, obviously Georgia is the deeper team, not by much, but they are deeper as far as the head-to-head on the field, going to play in this game talent. We already know, right? Like Alabama, Georgia has been like that for a very long time. They are very, very talented. So should be a very, very fun matchup from that perspective. Now let's go on through. Let's talk about quarterbacks. So I think that Todd Simpson is going to be getting the start for Alabama. He graded out at a 98 with 24/7 Sports. I think that he's a baller. He's not going to be Jalen Milroe where he's going to do a whole bunch with his legs, but he can use his legs. He can definitely run. Probably going to be a better processor, like a better passing quarterback. So that could definitely help. I think Alabama out, especially with this offensive system that seems to be a little bit more predicated on a quarterback that can make things happen down the field. Now, one of the things that I'll say for really both of these teams early on is that they need to do a better job in 2025 than, as opposed to 2024 with stopping the run, but also sticking to the run. If both of these teams do that, then there will both be major problems. Either way, looking out for that for Alabama coming up in 2025. But looking at their running backs, man, they have 5 blue chip caliber players, wide receivers. They have 8 of them, and I think that they're all studs. Talking about the tight ends, there's 2 right there, and they have a total of 31 versus Georgia's total, which is 38. Obviously, Georgia has a lot of very talented secondary players. I think the Georgia secondary takes a step forward this year compared to last season. They're just loaded up with talent. So let's take a look at the other side of this football, right? So looking at Georgia's offensive line, they've got 16 guys that are blue chip caliber. Most of them, I'm not going to say all, most of them are very, very young. So, but they look very talented there. Just as far as what Alabama has with their front seven, you got 8 guys. So you have a total of 19. That would be front seven players that are blue chip caliber, right? So looking at the running backs, Georgia also has 5 guys that are blue chips. They have 9 wide receivers. They got some transfer portal players in that I think are going to be good. Looking at the tight ends, they've got a lot of them. I think that they might have the most in the SEC. They've got 6. And then, you're looking at Alabama secondary. They have 11 guys. But I think that, how tall, long, and rangy the guys are inside of that secondary, and then they can move. They're not like tall stiffs. They're tall guys that I feel like could cover the smaller guys, which is rare to see. But yeah, I mean, NFL scouts are going to be drooling over watching this game, just like they always are. So the totals for Georgia's offense is 39, and the total for Alabama's defense is 30. So all that stuff sounds good. I mean, obviously, you might just want to give the edge to UGA, kind of based off of what you're seeing there. But if like I know, it's not always just about that talent. If it's about the most talented team is going to be the best team, then obviously, man, Kirby Smart would have a lot more championships than he has at this point because he's had a top 3 roster pretty much since he came to Georgia. Either way, taking a look at the box score from last season, okay, just because I want to dive a little bit deeper into what happened with this game. Now, as we talked about, Alabama came out on fire. They did some great things throwing the football down the field. They want to stretch you out vertically, okay? So that's how they were able to get off to that start. Kirby Smart, he does not want to let his cornerbacks play on an island. He wants to give them help. They played a ton of cover 4 just to keep their cornerbacks off coverage. But again, we're not going to break it down too much. I said I wasn't going to do it, but sometimes it does get tough. But what that does mean, though, is that if you're running a bunch of vertical routes, that's going to turn into one-on-one coverage. And I think that Milroe did a brilliant job of, every time Georgia tried to blitz, he knew exactly where to go. And I also think that, Alabama's offensive line did a really, really good job in holding up. But either way, let's talk about these stats, man. So Milroe passed for 374 yards. Carson Beck, who's not there anymore, threw for 439. And we'll take a look at these rushing numbers because I think that this stands out the most. 177 to 80. Now, a lot of that was from Jalen Milroe. Like I said, Alabama's got to find a way to dedicate their running backs to the running game a lot more moving forward. If they can do that, they're going to be very, very tough to stop because they've got the skill players on the outside. I think that they've got the offensive line that can hold up. And again, I feel like Georgia didn't do the best job of sticking to the run in this game. So, what they had 26 carries. I think that they probably could have done more than that. Either way, this is, Alabama needs to replicate that run defense to be able to slow Georgia down. Because, listen, I don't think that Gunnar Stockton is some baller. Like, I think that Georgia is in a tough situation with their quarterbacks. I sincerely do. They're going to be one of, maybe 2, maybe 3 teams in the whole SEC that doesn't have a true baller at quarterback. So I think that Georgia's going to be taking a step back with their quarterback play, from last season to this season. I think that Alabama is going to be taking a step forward just as far as the, pure operation of passing. So let's come on down. Let's talk about the sacks because Georgia got 0 right here. You're seeing 0 and Alabama was able to get 3. So if this can be replicated, which I think that it will get replicated for all the reasons that we kind of named off, I feel like, I definitely feel like Alabama's going to end up winning this football game. Now, I know a lot of folks will probably look and say, man, there's no way that, there's no way that Alabama is going to be able to win this one. But I would have to disagree. Now, again, it's all subject to change. But at this point, I have Alabama starting the SEC playoff 1-0. So let's come on back. Let's come on back to this schedule. And the next game is going to be versus Vandy. This time, Alabama gets to host Vanderbilt. And obviously, they played them last season in Nashville, lost it 35-40. How's that happen with a team that is so much talented and they're so much more talented than the other? Obviously, I'm talking about Alabama's a lot more talented than Vanderbilt was. So it's not going to be really any different this season. Okay, we'll go ahead and take a look at how things break down. And I'm not going to break down every single part of it. I'll just tell you about the totals. So Alabama's offense is totaling 31 blue chip caliber players, as we said before. Vanderbilt's defense is totaling 4. All right, obviously there is a huge gap right there. Now looking at Vanderbilt's offense versus Alabama's defense, talking about 3 to 30. So again, it was about the same way last season. I think that Vandy might have taken a step back just a little bit as far as the talent on paper. Something that we also know is that it's not just about how the talent looks on paper because guys like Pavia, I think he's only like a 3-star or something like that. But he plays, I would say, more like a 4-star, especially within that offensive system. That's something that, can change things significantly. If you have a good quarterback, that changes everything. But I want to take a look at these stats real quick, right? Just very, very quickly, just to show you what I feel like happened last season. Now we're going to scroll this thing back up to the top. You can see that Pavia had a very, very good day passing, 252 yards, but so did Alabama's quarterback, right? 310 yards. But the biggest thing here is about the rushing. This is why I said the rushing is going to be big for Alabama this season. 21 carries for 84 yards. That's inexcusable. Like, you should be averaging over 100 yards for sure. With the team with as much talent as Alabama has, come on, stop it. So looking at what Vandy did, 54 carries for 166 yards. They just played ball control, y'all. They held on to the football. So it's not just about Alabama's lack of being able to run the football, but it's also about not really being able to stop the run. It was just like Vanderbilt wanted to eat that clock up, run it all the way down, and they found a way just to get 3-4 yards a pop. And, they hit on the third downs that they had to hit on. And, I feel like Alabama has some costly turnovers kind of early on in that game. But you would feel like a team that has so much more talent should be able to overcome that. Either way, they couldn't do it. So if they want to be able to win this game this year at home, then obviously they're going to have to do a much better job of stopping the run and, sticking to the run and all that good stuff. But I do think that they'll do it. So I have Alabama winning that game as well. The next game is going to be versus Mizzou. All right. So Mizzou will be coming off of a bye. And, we didn't talk about this, but Vandy's going to be coming off of a game versus Utah State. But you can see, obviously, that, Alabama won this game last season by a landslide, 34-0. That is that is a big time victory. And I'm just curious, is this going to be, because it does feel like, it feels like Mizzou, every 2 to 3 years, they have a very, very good team. I don't think that we're at that point just yet, but we might be. It might be next season where they just come out of nowhere, they were like the Walking Dead for like a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, and then they come back and all of a sudden they're like a playoff caliber team. So either way, looking at the talent, again, kind of like the same thing here. There's a pretty sizable gap with the talent now. I will say that Mizzou is a lot more comfortable than what Vanderbilt was. In some of these spots, you could maybe look at, maybe you say, hey, well, their secondary, they've got some guys that maybe could match up with Alabama's wide receivers. But looking at the front seven, you got to ask yourself, how the hell are they going to be getting pressure on Alabama to slow down that, the quarterback, Ty Simpson, or whoever ends up starting? How are they going to slow him down? Because that's the first key. Like, you got to be able to stop. Well, you got to stop the run first, but then you got to be able to get after that passer. I just don't see them doing too much of that in this game based off of how the talent looks and based off of how the game went last season. But we could go over to the other side and take a look at the Tigers' offense versus Alabama's defense, and it's kind of the same thing. Now, this is a lot closer. The one thing that I will say here is that only 8 offensive linemen that are blue chip caliber, but what I will say is they do a good job with their offensive line. I think that they get the most out of them. So it could turn into a situation, maybe kind of similar to what we saw last season versus Vanderbilt, where if they stick to the run, especially, the Tigers love to run that outside zone, that, those stretch plays. If they can stick to that, and if Alabama can't stop it, then, we could have us a daggone ball game. But for me, I don't even think that there's too much of a reason for us to look at what happened last season, because it was such a blowout. Whole lot of turnovers, coming from those Tigers. So, that could be part of the reason it was such a blowout. I think that the game might be a little bit closer this season, but I still have Alabama winning this one at the end of the day. So let's go on to the next one. The next one is going to be versus Tennessee, and this one's going to be in Tuscaloosa. So we all know that last season, Alabama lost this game up in Knoxville. It's a totally different ball game going to a place like that. We all understand it, and they lost it 17-24. But let's take a look at the difference in talent here. This one's going to be a lot closer. Okay, you can see that the offense versus the defense, 31-31. Now, if you're breaking it down really, really tight, what you'll see is Alabama's offense is actually averaging a higher grade, which means that they have more 5-star players than what Tennessee has. So they've got more higher end talent. But I do think that Tennessee is built to get after the passer. Okay, same thing that they did last season. So you're seeing 13 guys up front. That would be, front 4 guys. Then after that, you've got the linebackers. There's 7 that are blue chip there. I mean, I think that this one's going to be a daggone battle. Now, where I feel like Alabama's going to have the edge at, besides playing this game, at home, would be that their quarterback play. Man, I think that Ty Simpson is a guy that's going to be probably much better than, whatever Tennessee rolls out there. Now, I don't know if it's going to be Joey Aguilar, who's only rated as like a very low 3-star, who I think has some skills this is one that we'll have to come back to because at this point, not knowing who the starting quarterback for Tennessee is going to be, man, it is going to be very, very tough for me personally to pick Tennessee to win. But I do think that there are some things just kind of going through everything that you're seeing here that you might say, man, I just don't know, especially because it's such a big rivalry game. But what I do want to do, okay, really, really quickly here, y'all, is take a look at how the box score measured out last season. What did Alabama do wrong? What could they do better? It's going to be the exact same thing that we've been talking about. Look at the running here. 75 yards, okay, 2.2 yards per carry versus Tennessee, 214, 5 yards per carry. You got to be able to run the football and you got to be able to stop the run. If Alabama can do that, then they will have a puncher's chance. But you could also look at this and say, well, man, Tennessee's passing game really wasn't great. Now, Nico came back in the second half and he had a really big second half. I think that he did enough for Tennessee to get the win there. But look at what Milroe did, 239, right? He also threw a couple of very costly picks. I know one of them was Alabama was getting close to scoring. The other one, that was when that was like their last drive. So that was just like a game sealer. But let's take a look at the sacks. It's something else that I love to take a look at. You can see that Alabama had 3, Tennessee had 3. So looking at those numbers, just as far as the talent from both of these rosters, you could say, man, it could be very, very close. But again, at this point, y'all, I feel like, personally, I feel like Alabama is going to end up winning this game because it is at home. And also, I'm actually going to bring this back up. Tennessee is going to be coming off of playing Arkansas. Now, Tennessee is going to be hosting Arkansas, but that's a game that they lost in 2024. So they could be coming into that game pretty beat up. So either way, let's go on to the next one, man. The next game is versus South Kakalaki, man. I think that they've got a very good team, obviously. Last season, that game was a lot closer than maybe some people thought. And I feel like that was another one where Milroe had like an early interception. Was it a pick six? I feel like he had one pretty early on. Either way, man, 27-25. South Carolina's got some dogs up front. That's the main thing that I would point to. I think that they've got some guys that can definitely get after that passer. Now, they lost some of them, but I think that they still have a few. Let's go ahead and take a look at this, man. Let's go ahead and break this thing down. You can see that the blue chip stuff is not as close with South Carolina as it was versus Tennessee. So looking at the fronts, offensive line for Alabama looks very, very strong, versus what we're seeing with South Carolina. Now, again, they had some guys that were only, I think, 3 stars coming out of high school or, whatever, that were just terrors. So do they have some more guys like that? I don't know what South Carolina's been doing, but, man, they sometimes they can come out of nowhere too. But there isn't, I would say that I don't see enough talent necessarily coming from South Carolina where I would be concerned if I'm an Alabama fan. Let's take a look at South Carolina's offense versus Alabama's defense. Now, they've got some quarterbacks. They've got like 2 or 3 really, really good ones. And, I think that they can make some things happen. Obviously, using their legs, you're going to have to spy those guys. And, that can take away from what you're doing with the coverage aspect of things. But you're still seeing like this one to me. I'm looking at the front sevens. Say, well, maybe it could be close, but I think that more than likely this is one that Alabama should also win. Now, I do kind of feel like this could maybe be a bit of a trap game. Okay, maybe a bit of one, just like it was last season. The thing about it is this game's going to be in Tuscaloosa. Will home field play any factor in this game? I think that it could, maybe just a little bit. But I think that this one's going to be close. Let's take a look at some of the stuff from last season, right? We're seeing that Sellers had a very, very good game. I think that he's going to probably be even better this year. We're seeing that, like we said, man, Milroe throwing those picks. A lot of that's going to be coming from the pressure. The biggest thing for me in this game is always going to be about the run first. Let's not get that twisted. But I just think that Alabama's got to do a good job with their tackles. Now, if there's anything else that I could point out to Alabama's offensive line, just with the pass pro, is that there's not a lot of depth at tackle. Okay, they've got some good guys that are going to be starters. But if, God forbid, something happens, the depth behind them, I don't think is necessarily great. I don't think that's a situation that Alabama wants to be in, but most teams are in that same boat. But you can see South Carolina actually outrushed Alabama, and they also, I think, lost the turnover battle. Still found a way to end up losing this game. So we'll have to take a look and see what happens coming up this year. You can see that South Carolina had 4 sacks, and so did Alabama. So I think that this one is going to be an absolute and total slobber knocker. I'm very much looking forward to it. But at this point, y'all, I do have to go with, I'm going to have to go with Alabama yet again. And listen, I'm not an Alabama fan. I'm not being an Alabama homer. I'm just Calling it like I see it. So let's come on back to the schedule. Who's the next one? The next one is going to be versus LSU. So Alabama gets to host LSU. Both teams coming off of a bye. I think it was the same way last season, right? This one, man, wait until y'all see how this thing plays out as far as the talent. Okay, the talent here. This is going to be another really, really close one. Two very, very talented teams. Let's take a look at the fronts. I mean, it is, dude, it is a nail biter on both sides. The one thing that I will say is it looks like LSU's has got a better offensive line. Maybe, well, you probably can't even really say that. It's just front seven players there. You know, I think that the skill players, that's there. This is going to be a night game. The Georgia game is going to be a night game. Alabama's probably going to be playing a ton of night games. You know, I think that they'll probably be prime time for most of the season. So, man, you know, we're talking about Alabama's offense has 31 blue chip guys, and then LSU's defense has 38. Their secondary is crazy. 17 blue chip caliber players. That's wild. And then you're looking at the other side. LSU has 36 guys that are blue chip caliber, and then Alabama has 30. So if you're looking at this stuff on paper, like like we say, if you're looking at this stuff on paper, you might say, man, I have a feeling that LSU is going to win this one. I think that this is LSU's time. You might be able to say it. I don't know. And the main reason that I'm saying that, y'all, is because, I'm not really trying to throw shade when I say that. I'm just keeping it real. I don't believe in Brian Kelly as a coach. His roster, this is going to be the most talented roster that he's had. There's no doubt about that. But looking at these stats, I mean, just like, look at the way that Alabama ran the football. Like, we talk so much about Alabama not being able to run it. Look at what they did here. You know what I'm saying? Like, look at this. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me come back up. Okay, so right here, look at this: 311 yards, almost 200 from the quarterback. We don't think that probably won't happen again. But has LSU figured out how to stop a quarterback that's mobile? Because they didn't show it in this game, and then you're seeing it. They actually did a pretty good job. I think LSU did a pretty good job rushing 104 yards. And then you come back up, obviously, man, looking at guys like Nuss. I think that Nuss is a really, really good quarterback, one of the best in this, in this conference. But I think that Ty Simpson is going to be every bit as good this year. So I just feel like it's going to be such a duel, but it's only going to be a duel if LSU can come in and stop the run some. I don't know. I don't believe in their defense. I don't believe in a lot of the things that they have going on personally. But you could look right here: 2 sacks for Alabama, 0 for LSU. So the biggest problem for LSU was definitely with their defense. I'm gonna go ahead and call this one, man. I've got Alabama winning this one. Almost threw y'all off, right? Yeah, I've got Alabama winning this one too. Let's see who's up next. So the next one's going to be Oklahoma. And man, Oklahoma is. I think that they're going to be better this season than they were last year. Obviously, Alabama loses that game 3-24. Let's take a look at how some of that stuff broke down. Right? Let's scroll it on over. Or how some of the stuff is going to break down this year. Let's take a look at how the blue chip calibers measure up. So we got, again, 13 for the offensive line with Alabama. You got a lot of guys up front for the Sooners. I think that their pass rush is going to be better. I think that their run defense is going to be better. I think that their defense from top to bottom is going to be better. They've got 14 guys in their secondary that are blue chip caliber. They've got a few, I would say that, it's kind of like going through their roster. I would say they've probably got, maybe 5 or 6, maybe even more NFL guys. Maybe not from this year. It might be more than that. Shoot, it might be about 10 of them, honestly speaking. But yeah, they've got some guys. I would say probably 4 or 5 for sure, just on their defense. So it'll be interesting, man. We'll take a look at the stats at the box score from last season and break down just a little bit what happened in this game. But looking at Oklahoma's offense, one of the biggest things that I have to talk about is that they've got a new offensive coordinator that came in with a brand new quarterback who I think is a baller. Okay, I think he's an absolute and total baller. So this could be another one of those quarterback duels. I think that a lot of this stuff, maybe not so much on paper. It's pretty close. Well, yeah, it is actually very close on paper. But I think that actually on the field, I think this is a very evenly matched. I think this is a very even matchup. So I do want to take a look. I want to take a look if I can get this thing pulled off for y'all here real quick at, what the box score looked like last season. Some things that, maybe both teams need to do differently if they, want to make sure that they can win. So Alabama, what do we always talk about? Look at the rushing here. 2.3 yards per carry, 70 yards right here, 257. You know what I'm saying? Jackson Arnold. You know what I'm saying? Jackson Arnold. We about to get to Auburn. Jackson Arnold, I'm just going to say it, man. You got to be able to stop the run. You got to be able to run the football. I mean, look at this 68 yards passing, and Alabama lost. That's how serious things are. Let's also talk about turnovers. Milroe, 3 picks, can't have it. Absolutely cannot have that. So, it was just one of those crazy games where pretty much everything that can go wrong was going wrong. Now, what's going to be beneficial for Alabama this year is that this game is going to be, if I'm not mistaken, in Tuscaloosa. So if the game is in Tuscaloosa, let's pull it back up and let's see just to be sure. So yeah, so this game's going to be in Tuscaloosa, and actually, man, you know what? I'm sorry, Oklahoma coming off of a bye, and obviously Bama coming off of the game versus LSU. This could be another potential trap game, but I feel pretty confident that Alabama's going to win. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be closer than it was last season, but this time it's just going to be favoring. It's just going to be favoring Alabama. Now, the next game, last game, okay, Iron Bowl versus Auburn, right? They're coming off of Mercer, and Alabama's coming off of Eastern Illinois. Now, Alabama won this game last season, 28-14. I think it was a little bit closer than that. Now, obviously, the first thing that I want to point to with this game is going to be Auburn's quarterback. We talked about Jackson Arnold, what he did to Alabama last year. I think that Jackson Arnold is a guy that Oklahoma gave up on a little bit too quickly last season. I like his game. And obviously Auburn's got some more really good quarterbacks. Talking about a coach like Coach Freeze. He knows how to get a lot out of his quarterback play. And, this game was close last season. It was close the season prior to that with that other quarterback who is not very good. So, in situations like this, now that I think with Coach Freeze having a good quarterback, I could definitely see, and y'all can look at this stuff and y'all can see how the blue chip stuff measures out. I don't think, and all of us should know this, in games like this, it really doesn't matter too much. Okay, doesn't matter too much, but I think that it is going to be very, very beneficial that Coach Freeze has got a couple of guys that he can trust playing at quarterback, because their offensive line's not great. If their running game's not great, which, Auburn's got a few really good running backs. They've got some really good wide receivers. I'm just saying, man, I'm setting it up for you. Okay. I'm just saying, I feel like this one could be maybe a little bit closer than maybe some of the experts are thinking preseason, but let's look at what happened last year, right? So Thorne, okay, so Peyton Thorne actually had maybe his best game last season versus Alabama, right? Throws a pick, and then, they try to, I don't know what the heck is going on here, trying to do some trickeration here. You know what I'm saying? Milroe actually had a pretty decent game. Obviously throws a pick, has no touchdowns, but you're looking at this. This was the difference. This was the difference, right? You got the quarterback who can run. You've got two guys, got all the carries for Auburn last season. So I think it's going to look a lot different, y'all. I'm just telling you that. I really sincerely do. Let's come on down. Let's take a look at the sacks as we're scrolling through. Y'all can pause it wherever you want to pause it at, but we're seeing 1 sack right here for Auburn and then 1 for Alabama. Man, you know what? Alabama fans, y'all are not going to like this. Y'all are not going to like this at all, but this is the one game that at this point, I do have Alabama losing. I think that they're going to lose this game. And, I guess, the most messed up part about it is that, if you come back, you can see where this game is being played. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know why I was saying that this game was in Tuscaloosa. This game was actually at Auburn. Yeah, so I definitely do have Auburn winning this game. So, I mean, hey, listen, that's still good enough for Alabama to make it to the college football playoffs and have a chance for a national championship. So I know that y'all hate that, but you know what I'm saying, to kind of end things off. But I think that Alabama is going to have a very, very big season. But those are my thoughts. Please share yours with me down in the comment section. And as always, y'all, please do make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. And we'll see y'all on the next one. Thanks. Peace.